So I guess there's a lot of stuff to talk about with Jump, and I think we're just going to kind of get a lot of it out of the way here. So I think maybe we should start with our thoughts on two Jump starts that started a couple weeks back. Sid, do you want to maybe introduce the first one for me, since I totally forgot the name of it already?
Sure. So the first jumpstart let's talk about is Spring Weapon #1, which is a comedy manga about this, robot who's created by this mad scientist for world domination, but he decides, no, I don't want that. I want to live a normal life. So he escapes from his mad scientist creator's lab and starts attending a high school. And this freaks out a secret agent who's undercover at the high school, whose name is Hokuto. And his name is like a pun on secret agent. I just don't remember his full name right now. The main character, the robot kid's name is Zero Ichinamba, which literally means number one, which is pretty hilarious, on the nose name, which is great. And
That's
the basic
good.
joke is that the secret agent is freaking out about this weapon of mass destruction killer robot, attending high school and trying to live out the quote-unquote springtime of his youth. He has this very idealized vision of high school life and youth that he's trying to live. And the secret agent doesn't trust him, of course, but eventually kind of realizes this guy isn't really a threat or has ill will, but he still has to be concerned and watch over him, because if his handlers, if the secret agent's superiors find out that Zero Ichinaba is attending this school, they're gonna nuke the entire town to get rid of him. So he kind of can't let that happen. So he's got to keep his identity under wraps. And so they get into some shenanigans as, Zero Ichinaba's robot powers and lack of understanding of social conventions, but strangely enough, more normal outlook on life and more normal attitude compared to Hokuto, gets them in sorts of wacky shenanigans, and they have some good banter and chemistry with each other. It's a pretty good comedy manga. I would definitely enjoy seeing and reading more of it. Pretty funny stuff.
Yeah, I remember reading it and thinking, I remember laughing at some of the jokes, but I don't know. I thought some of it was funny, and some of it didn't really get much of a reaction out of me in terms of the comedy. I thought it was okay. I certainly didn't dislike it, but I mean, like you said, I wouldn't mind maybe reading more.
The first chapter was alright. The third chapter, I think, is the best showcase of what the series is capable of and how funny it can be, because that is when Namba and Hokuto have to team up to get this girl to give him her number so he can, watch over her, because she needs to be put under surveillance for some reason that isn't explained to him, but so he has to get her number. And it's funny because both of them completely fumble and are so awkward in doing that. So it ends up being pretty hilarious. It's like taking a mundane situation up to 11, which I enjoy. So I thought that
I enjoy
was
stuff
really
like
good.
that too. Yeah. So yeah, I think for me, Spring Weapon #1, I don't know. This is one of those things where I would have read more of it, but I haven't had time to read Jump lately. But just from what I've seen, I would say it was all right. I didn't have a problem with it. I don't know if I'm ready to recommend it yet, though.
I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, whether or not we recommend it is going to depend on whether it continues for a while, and also whether it gets put into the English Jump at some point.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this feels like the kind of thing that I feel like could probably get canceled pretty soon, though, unfortunately.
Maybe not. Who knows? There isn't a pure gag manga, I think. There's Psyche. That's true.
And then there's Isobe.
Yeah, there's Isobe. Isobe is also this weird kind of different style gag series, though, too. So,
which I really want to see in English. I really want to be able to read that, but I know that'll probably never happen.
It'd be good as free content on the Shonen Jump website, so I would like to see it.
It would. but I feel like nobody would click on it.
Maybe.
Unfortunately.
I don't know. Spring Weapon, we'll see what happens to it.
Yeah, well, this is a wait and see. I mean, if it does get picked up in the English magazine, I'll probably read it. Like, it's weird. I've been trying to give more of these continuing Jump starts a chance because usually with Jump, I usually make it a policy to not give anything new a chance unless it, or I guess not start reading anything new weekly unless it passes at least 50 chapters in serialization. Because if you could pass 50 chapters of serialization in Jump, I think you've got it good. Cause Jump, as we, if you read Jump as much as Sid and I, you realize that Jump is very ruthless with its new series. And is I mean, if you don't do well enough in the magazine, you end up like a certain series, cough, Love Rush, cough, that get canned after about like 2 volumes worth of material, I think.
Yeah. I guess that's a good transition to talking about that. Yes, Love Rush has been cancelled. It ended in issue 50 of Weekly Shonen Jump, which was out this Monday, November 14th. And as far as I'm concerned, I thought Love Rush was a very promising series. Like, it really had a purpose to it, it felt. It intriguingly explored these concepts of love and like how these various characters relate to their ideas on love. And it also progressed the relationship between the 2 main leads, Shizuku and the Reiji, the male lead. Very interestingly, I found Shizuku in particular a very interesting character and how she didn't know how to express or come to terms with her feelings for Reiji. So I found that really interesting. And I think that the series had a lot of potential. It could have been, if it had, more time, I think it could have been developed into something really interesting, or it could have, devolved into a standard harem rom-com-y thing. But to me, it's clear that the mangaka had some very interesting ideas and had some specific ideas on what he wanted to do with the series, and it was a very good subversion of typical cliches, and as well as a deconstruction of various cliches and, the shonen romantic comedy in general. So I found that very appreciable, and for what it was, I enjoyed it a lot. So there we go.
Okay, so here's my last question before we move on. So I pretty much haven't read Love Rush past the first chapter just because I wasn't really particularly interested in another rom-com personally. I mean, I'm not a big fan of rom-coms in general. Nisekoi was a pretty big exception. But so now that Love Rush has ended, would you say if I said, okay, maybe I'll read it now that it's over, would you say it's worth reading now that it's canceled?
Yeah, it was a very interesting series for what it was trying to do and for the way it approached its subject matter and this idea of various characters trying to express and think about how this concept of love and like what it means to them. I found like how it was approaching that very interesting. And it didn't get to develop those ideas as fully as it might have if it had been given more time. But I think that for the length of run it has, like 13 chapters basically is what it's ending on.
Oh, wow.
It's a pretty interesting little anomaly of a series that has a lot to offer and tells what feels like a pretty satisfying complete story within its run. So I think it's a nice read. You can read it in about an hour.
Okay, I'll probably put it on my get to whenever list. Okay, that's all right. This is stuff like this, circumstances like this is why I'm usually so hesitant to keep up with new stuff weekly, because stuff like this happens. Okay, it's short. I'll probably get to it at some point, but now that that's over, we should probably talk about some of the new series coming to Jump.
Well, Why don't we talk about
Oh,
RWBY
yeah, that's right.
first,
I'm sorry. I almost forgot. My bad. So, yes, go ahead and talk about RWBY. What did you think about the first chapter?
Yeah, so RWBY debuted in Shonen Jump recently. It's going to be running as a weekly series until they catch up with the Japanese releases, after which it'll switch to a monthly release in Jump. And so the first few chapters are out by the time of this recording, and I've had a chance to read them. And I have to say, I really like the mangaka's artwork. Like, I was wondering, because the appeal of RWBY is its action sequences, how that would translate into a manga, a still visual format, and I think it actually ended up pretty well. The mangaka has a really good use of compositions and pacing, and there's some really dynamic art, and so the action scenes look really impressive, and I think that's where this manga version shines so far. As far as the story goes, I mean, the first two chapters are basically designed to introduce you to the central four characters and the world. The first half of the first chapter is basically an adaptation of the Red trailer for RWBY that was released way back in the day. And then the remaining half of that chapter, the second chapter, is basically an original kind of story that takes place sometime in the first season that just involves RWBY fighting Carter. What's his name? Carden, yeah. Carden sucks, but he only appears in like 4 episodes anyways. But yeah, so it's just about her fighting Carden. The basic point of that is just to introduce RWBY as a character and then kind of establish her motivations and then relationship with her team, you know. So for the first 2 chapters, I don't know if they really leave much an impact to people who haven't watched the series and understand what's going on. And for people who have watched the series, like myself, it's not like it adds anything new. But I'm interested in seeing where the manga takes things going forward, because ostensibly it's a prequel series, and so it'll be going into some more backstory stuff and stuff that we haven't seen in the animated series yet. So I'm interested in seeing that stuff when it comes up. And I definitely think the action sequences are a huge plus in the series. So it's hard though for me to really recommend it to anyone who doesn't already know the series. Because even though the first 2 chapters are designed to basically introduce you to the series, I don't think you'll really get much enjoyment out of it unless it's as a supplementary to your viewing experience with the series, because there's still so much that the manga zooms, going into this. Like, they don't bother introducing John, for one thing, but or like his teammates, or Ozpin, or really any of the characters besides RWBY, Weiss, and Blake and Yang, the main 4. So you really gotta know some things about RWBY in order to understand the manga version, even though it's supposed to be a prequel. So it's kind of hard to recommend it to someone who listens to the series. But as far as the manga goes, and the readapting the trailer parts goes, I'm hoping they expand on the Blake trailer more, because if you watch the Blake trailer, like, there's a lot they don't really explain or don't really make clear, that, like, it's really hard to really get invested in her character at the start, because she kind of, for the longest time in the series, has the least to do until, like, the very end of the first season, when we learn a lot more about her. But, like, there's a lot of stuff about her relationship to the White Fang and Adam Taurus in the Black that's supposed to be implied in her trailer, but it really isn't, like, made very clear. So I'm hoping the manga version does a better job at that.